I'm going to talk about some economic considerations for these type of barns. It's difficult to have hard numbers on this because there's so many variations between every kind of system, but I'm going to give you a couple numbers and mostly what you need to think about going into this system and some comparisons you can make with other systems or the current system you're using. So I'll address the structure, bedding, equipment, and labor, the aspects of those areas, and the details that you need to look at for costs. First of all, your structure, this will likely be your most significant expense with these. Some of the things you may be able to do to offset those costs is modifications to a current building. EQIP funding is also available. Some of our study farms got up to half of their expenses covered for the building, and our study farms ranged from $15 to $20 per square foot for the total building. At 80 square feet per cow, that's $1,200 to $1,600 per cow. But that does not include EQIP funding. So, for example, it'd be about $600 per cow if you have 80 square feet of spacing in there, if you got half of it covered with EQIP funding. So some of the variations, they're pretty obvious, but size is going to have a considerable impact on cost. How much concrete you have there. We have recommendations on sidewalls, for example, but as you heard in our panel, some guys use 4 foot, some guys use 3 foot. Ventilation as well. Are you going to add fans in there, or just go with a natural ventilation? And then how you construct your feed alleys. Those are all going to have big effects on the cost. I'll go through the barn layouts of our study farms just to give you an idea of some things you can do and what other people have done. This barn, does this have a laser cleaner? Okay. So this barn is divided in half. These are bedding areas, and then this is their feed alleyway. So this area is where they will scrape because the cows they'll distribute the feed along here. And this farm actually, this area they had cleaned out once a year. This area, we'd been going to the farm. This was in their second year, and they hadn't yet cleaned this out because it was sloped to run this way. So they'd been on their second year and hadn't cleaned it out yet. This is similar to the other farm with the 2 bedding areas and the center alleyway, but they also have a manure pen here, so they're scraping the feeding area into this, and they have a storage area there. So that may be something you can consider as well to get rid of the slop. This is just one bedding zone here with the feed alley on the end. And then this barn has the feed alley is within an overhang over the outside of the barn, similar to what you see with beef operations. So in our study farms, they primarily used sawdust. One of our farms, Nathan mentioned using chopped straw and mixing that with sawdust, and that worked well when it was in short supply. And from what I've seen, the availability and cost of sawdust can vary extremely. Right now, I think it's around $15 per ton is what our forestry specialist told me, but when the housing market dropped a few years ago, that price was a lot higher. So it's important to, do you have a steady source of sawdust? What's that price going to be? What are you going to do if it becomes too expensive? Are you going to be able to chop straw? One of our farms just put straw in without chopping it, and it became more of like the bedded pack system that doesn't compost, and it was very difficult. He wasn't able to stir it, so he lost that composting. So bedding is critical as far as management goes, and it can be an economic nightmare if you're not keeping, if you don't think through all of the aspects of it. As you heard, there's various size tractors that our producers are using. If you already have a tractor, a small tractor, that could work. If not, you're going to look into the expense of that. A mixing tool, here's one that one of our farms used. They're pretty simple. It can be an old tillage tool. Kentucky mentioned some of their farmers using rototillers. That might be an extra expense if you want to go both ways. And then you're going to need a loader tractor or a skid steer to get in there and clean out the feed alleyways, and also to clean out the bedding when the pack gets too high, and then your feed distribution system. Now some of these, if you are currently operating, you may have this equipment. If not, you need to look at how these expenses are going to add up. Labor. Our farms that we studied vary from 16 to 22 hours per month. That's stirring twice daily and scraping the alleyways, and then adding sawdust as needed. And the wage rate, depending on the skill level, it's $10 to $13 per hour. So at $12 per hour and 16 to 22 hours per month, you're looking at $192 to $264 in labor. So I mentioned sawdust. The producers said it takes about an hour to add that sawdust in, and they're doing it once a week to once a month. So cow spacing has a big impact on how often you're going to have to add that sawdust. If you have more spacing per cow, then you may be more towards the once per month. If you cram them in there more, you're going to be adding it more often. And then access to pasture also reduces how much sawdust and stirring you're going to have for labor. So compare this to your current system. Is it about the same? Some of our farms said it was the same, some said it was less, so that's a consideration you need to take into account. Did you have a question? Okay, thought I saw someone raise their hand. Now, the University of Kentucky has a tool that is, I think, pretty interesting, and can really help you compare. They do the compost system, the mattress, and sand systems. So I'll just show you kind of the details of these, of the tool, and how it might be useful for you in figuring out which system is best from an economic standpoint. If it loads. So the first section is farm inputs, and you can see here the different areas that you can adjust: your interest rate, your tax rate, your cow feed cost. So you can really personalize it to your farm, and if you don't know what something is, should, let's see, these white buttons, if you hover over them, it's supposed to pop up a description of what each item is. But there we go. And then you have your herd characteristics, benefits, SCC bonus structure, and investment measures. So you, like I said, this really can be personalized to your operation. There's so many variations within each that it's difficult to come up with an overall value, but here under the compost system, you can look at your cost of barn per cow space. The default here is $854. How many times you stir the pack. So really all the details we've talked about today are included in here. The mattress free stall system. Similar similarities like the cost of the barn, number of times you rake the stalls, and then loading of bedding. So these are all similarities, but they can play different roles economically in each system. And then the sand free stall. So then you go to your investment analysis, and it gives you the net present value, your internal rate of return. So in this case, with the internal rate of return, the composting system is better, but those were just with the default numbers. So really you can go, this is, I mean, if you are really interested in seeing what operation is best for you, I highly recommend this tool. If you don't have access to the internet, you can go to your library, your local extension office, soil and water office. I'm sure they'd be willing to help you out using this, and you should have the link to it in the PowerPoint presentation. Any questions? All right.
Well, then thank you. That's very nice too. Thank you, Amanda.